brilliance to the education fraternity. He brings over 9 years of experience in technology industry, encompassing various functions of product development, project management, account management, business development, and managing strategic alliances. He has spent a major chunk of his career traveling across the world, and he visited more than 15 countries for various assignments. He draws his inspiration from these developed nations, where the use of technology with everyday tasks has made a world of difference. Gaurav has earned many awards and accolades during his years as a student himself. His continuous streak with perfect scores in mathematics were applauded all over, and he is also a member of Mensa India, Delhi chapter, which is the organization that connects high IQ people across the world. So, a round of applause for Mr. Gaurav.
Hey, thank you, Anand. So, may I have the mic, Anand?
Hello.
Hey, good morning, everyone. You've been very patient audience, so I think this round of applause for yourself, for living up the day. As Anand introduced me, I currently represent a startup, EduVision Retail Technologies Pvt, which has been into the education domain for about 2 years now. It basically has a flagship B2C e-commerce brand by the name scholarcard.com, which basically deals in products and services for students all across India. So we have a lot of customers from all over the place, including Jamshedpur and a couple of orders even from Accelerate. So we have been servicing these customers for the products that they need, like books, stationery, digital learning products, even courses for that matter is what we are talking about. So ScholarCart, as I've been talking about, is a B2C e-commerce portal which has been serving the student customer base for over 2 years, and we do realize that in this industry, a very important role has been played by institutions in recommending these products and services to the students who are basically going to consume it. So, given that kind of information, we have recently introduced a pivot, wherein we are creating a technology platform, under the brand of EduVision, which is going to be a B2B2C model, enabling institutions to have their own, portals to service their own students, and essentially without even hassle of doing anything for that matter. So so that's what we're talking about, and that's broadly about what we have been doing. And the idea today is to basically have many more stores like scholarcard.com, which basically are stores not only of private retail brand for that matter. It could be K-12 schools, playgroups, colleges or MBA institutions like yours, who could have their own stores where students don't even have to go out of their institution to buy from a range of 1 million products, which could be coming directly to their classrooms if they require. So this is about what we have been doing currently, and now the flashback part. So I say flashback because I take a lot of my inspiration from movies. So as someone in one of my favorite movies, The Truman Show, said, we take the world as it is presented to us in its reality. So our decisions, our behavior is all driven by the experiences that we have had in the past, and hence the flashback. So I come from a business family, a small-time business family based out of Banaras. As a child, and I was like the 5th child, 4 sisters, elder sisters. So as a child, I was burdened with the responsibility of running the family business. And being the rebel I was, I had a very strong conviction that that's what I'm not going to do. And that kind of started pushing me towards looking for opportunities where I can get a corporate job easily. And my sister told me, people who go to IITs get cool jobs. So that's where the journey started of pursuing a BTech from an IIT, and that's when I wrote my JEE, and that was the only exam I wrote that year. And fortunately got a rank and joined IDBHU at that point of time. 4 years later, I walked out with a degree and a job at Infosys. Did what we really wanted to do at that point of time. Joined Infosys and realized the world, in a corporate sector is probably not that cool, because it's a company, it's a mature company, and you don't really get to see a lot of things happening around you. So then, the thought process started kicking back, and what I realized was, probably doing business was a better idea, and I should probably look to take away as much as I can from this industry, and then jump back, into doing something of my own. So that's when I started my, kind of search for employers where the exposure could be much higher. So I started joining smaller and smaller companies, a couple of startups in this journey. Traveled across the world, lived in US for a couple of years, worked in about 4 countries, traveled to over 17 countries for various assignments. So I did a lot of these things, got a drift of a lot of corporate culture, and obviously experienced a lot of different roles in this meanwhile. I realized that an MBA would probably be an asset before I did something of my own. So I started, I pursued my MBA from IIM Bangalore at that point of time. During the MBA, there was a course in entrepreneurial leadership by a professor called Professor D.V.R. Sheshadri, and that actually gave me a lot of insights about how you should actually start a business. So, Professor essentially came from an entrepreneurship background himself, and he had done a stint building a large enterprise in India. In those days, he used to produce optical discs, the CDs that we call it, right? So they were the largest producers of those discs in those days, back in the 90s. And he had failed miserably after that, and that's what he used to tell us the story, that okay, fine, I did go gung-ho at one point of time and then failed miserably. So he had both sides of the story coming out. So so that was kind of an inspiration. I kind of realized, as an MBA is supposed to be, right? The whole idea of an MBA and for that matter, the case-based curriculum is that you learn from someone else's mistakes, right? So that was one point that I took from him. He told me, or as a class, he told us that when you build your team, when you are building a team, and which you will require when you are working in a startup, right? Be sure that you lay down the terms very early, because the teams are not something which are constant. It's a variable, and I'll get to the variable part again. So that was it. I did my MBA. I was still pursuing a job because there were family responsibilities. The money had to keep coming in, and then I met someone from a company called QVI. Now QVI, most of you won't know, you would have heard of something called as MBA. I mean, how many of you have heard of MBA? Okay, so MBA is something called a chain marketing company. Now this guy was, these guys actually, it's a very, very surprising thing that these chain marketing companies are very good at keeping the morale very high of their, marketers. So what they do is they do a lot of training, and they give you a lot of gyan as to this is what you have to tell the potential new marketer, right? And this guy actually told me, in a job that you are earning a livelihood. What about wealth creation? So, and that kind of struck hard with me. I was like, okay, fine, I've been splurging money all these years, about 9-10 years that I've been working, seen the world, but whatever I created, my dad probably working as a small businessman in my hometown was much more wealthier than what I have, and what I have been able to collect in this past, and he probably had much more time to himself than what I have. So, and the freedom. So so that was what kind of ticked off with me, and I started creating a diary of ideas. I obviously didn't have a bulb clicking like happened with Shruti. So I had a diary of ideas and started writing a few ideas in there, evaluating each one of them on parameters that I had considered at the point of time very relevant, and eventually boiled down to this idea of building education technology enterprise. So before I really go into that any further, I really want to ask someone, what was the inspiration of this photo in this IdeaKon poster? So whose inspiration? Dhruv, can you answer me? Dhruv is here now. It was. So idea, usually have this Eureka picture, right? So I have an idea. But this is what happens to you post an idea. Okay? Every hair that is hair strand that is standing over here actually reflects a problem in Shruti's term, which you essentially have to solve. And if you notice, when you look at posters from large companies, corporates, the guys will be very well groomed. The idea is that those problems have been solved out. Okay, so that's what kind of takes you back to being normal human beings. So yeah, so that's what a startup is. You start with an idea, and even I have a theory of my own when it comes to startups. So there are 5, and coming from a technology background, I tend to use the term variable. So how many of you are from technology background over here? Okay, a fair mix, I would say. So the rest of you, I'll explain the word variable. Variable is something we have all learned algebra in our school days, right? X is equal to A plus B or something like that, So you can assume that X is a variable. Variable basically means it can hold anywhere, right? It could change from time to time. That's why it's called variable. So there are 5 variables in a startup, and there could be more, but that's my theory. So the first and the least important one is the idea. And when I say it's a variable, it basically means it keeps changing over a period of time, right? You start with an idea, and that's something I started with. I started with thinking that I will create a technology platform, sell it to schools, and that platform will enable all the transactions, bring transparency and convenience to all the transactions that can possibly happen between a student and an institute. That was the first idea we started with. Very early we realized that that's something which is not going to sell so easily, and probably building it will be again a very big task. So we kind of came back. And that's when we started thinking of building an e-commerce brand, because creating a brand is very important when you approach institutions, because you have to show credibility before you sell a solution to them. So that's where we come from. So idea is something which is very variable, and I say it is the least important element, though most of us will believe that it is very significant. And just to do one more thing, how many of you believe that if you have an idea and if you share it with someone, it'll be lost or someone else will take it away? How many of you believe that? It just doesn't happen. So good that no one believes that. No one takes your ideas, and even if he takes it, there are 4 more variables to take care of after that, and I'm sure everyone will have different values in there. The second one, which is again important, and from investment perspective, Ashu would probably know it better, is the B plan, the business plan. And when I say business plan, I'm talking about a revenue model. So yeah, it is important. Again, it keeps changing. It keeps changing depending on so many factors. One of them is that you originally thought that this particular person will pay you money, and later you realize he won't. And you thought I'll create a freemium model. Freemium model is basic portion of my product will be free, but then there will be some premium services that customers will pay for, and customers don't. They only use the free part. So obviously, business plan has to change, and it keeps changing. It's a variable. Next one is the execution strategy, as to who you decide are going to be your partners in this game. Who you decide are going to work with you. What exactly are you going to work out? Where will you work out of? What are the geographical areas you're going to service? Blah blah blah. So there's a whole lot of questions that is there. I was just talking to Naeem, in this morning. He was talking about currently serving Hyderabad as one of the markets, and that's a variable, right? Because he's saying very soon he's going to expand in the rest of the markets as well. So that's a variable. Execution strategy is something which is completely your own. And again, this keeps changing. And as I'm speaking, the next factor is always a slightly more important one in running a startup. So the next one is the team, and a very large factor, as everyone has emphasized. Now, having said that, where do you find your team? So who do you look for when you're building a team, and what are the things that you need to consider when you're building a team? So you basically best places to find your teams is basically your college classmates, ex-classmates for that matter, or your ex-colleagues, people you have worked with and you know that you gel well, or even your family for that matter. But then remember one thing, these are people who are not going to remain with you all their lives. See, understand, how many of you actually plan to or have worked with a company for all your life? You have not, right? Those days are gone. So even for startups, if there's someone who is working with you even on a co-ownership basis, it's not a permanent thing, it's something which is going to change, right? And hence, even before you identify and close down on a team, you need to lay down the rules of separation. You need to lay down that if things don't go well, how would we separate? How the equations would be, who will take away what, and how, if let's say a stake buyback has to happen, as to how it has to happen. So that's something which you have to take away from that. So there is a movie called Pretty Bird. I mean, anyone who is wanting to be an entrepreneur and has not really done it so far should definitely watch that movie. It's a movie where they show, I'll repeat the name, Pretty Bird. It's a movie where they show how an awesome idea can go down the drain if the team is not right, and what happens if the team is not right. So you definitely watch it. And then the last and the most important one is the customer, the person who is going to pay for the product that you are going to create. So if you have a customer, how big is the customer base? Does he have a paying capacity? I hope you're not building a product for a beggar, or even he can pay for certain products. So having said that, I mean, you have to decide as to who your customer has to be, and whether he'll pay for the product that you are actually, the value proposition that you are actually building. So having said that, given these 5 variables I'm talking about, starting from an idea to a B plan to an execution strategy, a team, and the customer, they are all variables because customers change. So as I told you in scholarcard.com, we said we are doing a B2C business. So students were a customer. Now we are talking about a B2B2C business, and then institutions become a customer. I don't know, tomorrow it could be someone else for that matter, right? So everyone changes. All of these elements keep changing over a period of time as you reconfirm your business ideas. But having said that, one thing has to be remembered: what is a startup? And it is very, very wisely said that startup is a temporary organization. Until it becomes a company. Startup is a temporary organization which is in search of a repeatable, scalable, and a profitable business model. Alright, so just remember this thing, it's a temporary organization. The moment it becomes a company, all these variables becomes constants. And then there is no flexibility after that. So Reliance Petroleum today will only do that business that it has been doing. There is no flexibility in what they are doing because they are so they are a company now, they are not a startup anymore. So that's what I'm talking about here. And another thing which is very important in a startup kind of setup is perseverance of the founding team. So it's something which is very, very relevant. Most of the startups, as the data says, die out in about 18 months of their operations. About 80% of them die out. So perseverance is very important. You need to realize that when you are getting into a startup mode, the journey is not really going to be very happy to begin with, right? So eventually it should be. But so I'll take an example. There's a joke, a husband calls up his wife and says, Janu, take care. I hear on the radio that there is some crazy fellow driving on the wrong side of the road. And the wife responds, one crazy fellow? This whole gang of people are driving on the wrong side of the road. So apparently the concept is that this lady is actually driving on the wrong side of the road and she's seeing the whole traffic coming to you. And this is what happens when you run a startup. Everything that, so as Murphy, would have done it. So everything, I'm sorry Shruti, I'm taking a lot. So you kind of stole my speech before I came, with all the energy. So for everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And everything that you would feel, should go this way, will turn around and come back to you. So it's very, very difficult. It's basically nerve-wrenching to drive through this period. But trust me, when that booming happens, the rewards are much bigger. The wealth that you create in terms of money, obviously, that's important. But then, even otherwise, in terms of experiences, in terms of your own, individual stardom, is immensely rewarding. And so don't quit this journey midway. The gold pot might be right there. So having said that, as I told you that I'm a big fan of movies, as Jim Carrey would have said it. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, and good night if I don't say